Good morning, everyone. I believe, especially on the last day, it is important to start on time so that we can end on time. So if I can ask everyone to please come in and take your seat. If you are the voting rep for your ESIP partner organization, I need you to see Megan to get a voting card. We have one endorsement vote that we're going to do in person. And you just need to get a bright colored card from Megan, or raise your hand and maybe someone can run that over to you. So what a week. It has just been so wonderful to see and connect with all of you here in person. And yesterday and days earlier, I really felt the people online and the participation. So just thank you all for bringing all of your energy here to Burlington and to the online spaces this week. With that, I am going to start ESIP's annual business meeting, and I would like to call Ken Casey up to officially call us to order.
Many of you have probably been hearing about the gavel, so let us begin.
So this is our chance once a year to check in with you all as a community and give you a checkup, give you a state of the organization, how we are doing, and share some highlights over the past year. I'm going to provide some insights to the new mission and vision that were shared earlier with you this week, and talk a little bit about how we did that and how that feeds into our larger strategic plans and our look towards the future. After that, you're going to hear directly from our three core federal sponsors, NASA, NOAA, and USGS. We will have our formal leadership transition. We will caucus by partner type to ensure our administrative committees are staffed. That said, we may not have to caucus, so we're watching that. A number of people have stepped up and volunteered for those committees, so that might give us a little extra time back. We do have that one in-person vote to endorse a document that has gone out to the Assembly, so we will do that here as well. So just looking around this week, as I said, the vibrancy of this community is apparent. With roughly 300 people here in Burlington and another 50 online, this meeting ranks as one of our largest hybrid or in-person gatherings. The annual business meeting is part of our commitment to transparency to you, to share about the health of ESIP through a combination of both data about the organization as well as stories of our impact. But that isn't all. So I want to make this a two-way conversation because that's how we do things here at ESIP. So we have one last Slido poll for you all. So in this session, I would like you to go to slido.com #ESIP, and you will find a poll that tracks my presentation. So I'm going to tell you things, and I know this community, you're not shy. You can tell us things, right? And so this can be a two-way conversation, because I believe that's what community is all about. It is working together and constantly iterating to be the best that we can be. So as you know, ESIP is an organization of organizations. That is our structure. So in the last year, we are excited to have added 7 new partner organizations to ESIP, including 5 that were just added at our board meeting on Monday. Those organizations are all listed here. You can see who they are. So we are really excited to be looking at our community in the way, practicing what we preach, using data to understand our community. We've moved to a new community database this year, which we are still in the process of configuring and rolling out, but it is allowing us to more accurately see which of our 180 partners are truly active and showing up and participating, and who's faded off, who have we lost a little bit of activity from. So in the coming year, you are going to see the ESIP community really try and reach out to those inactive partners and figure out what we can do to reactivate them. And then similarly, there are tons of people I know in this room who maybe they don't feel like they have a full seat at the table because their organization is not a partner, right? So we will have a very thoughtful campaign to engage new partners and try and bring you fully into ESIP so that you can experience the community and have a full voice and ability to serve in leadership. So if you are not yet a partner organization, I encourage you to reach out to the staff or the board. There's information on our website about partnership because we would really love to bring you in as full partners. So it can be easy to see ESIP as our 2 large meetings each year, right? All the people here in July, all the people that will be online in January. But ESIP as a community is active 52 weeks a year. We have over 30 collaboration areas composed of clusters and committees. Altogether in the last year, these groups have held over 200 meetings. Some of you are, I swear, are in every meeting. You guys are amazing. These calls and meetings are supported by our community leaders, our community fellows, and our staff. And when you add up all the people in those calls throughout the year, we can count over 2,000 hours of collective community engagement that comes together through ESIP. And interestingly, we've seen a 10% increase in our community engagement in just the last 6 months. So for engagement, in case you're curious about the QR code, that's how you can get into the Slido to continue to engage with us that I mentioned earlier, or it's just slido.com #ESIP. So each of our collaboration areas is a little different. They have specific aims and goals and outcomes. Some groups brainstorm and problem solve, host speakers, while others create sessions like you saw here this week, posters and publish papers. And this can be seen and measured through the number of our Figshare downloads that we've seen in the last year. So I'd like in the poll that I've given to you, I would love for you to tell us more about your interactions with ESIP. What collaboration areas and clusters are you active with? What can we do better in our collaboration areas? And how can we improve the agility and the work of our collaboration areas? Would love to hear from you on that. So here is our list of collaboration areas. And this especially is for the new folks in the room that, hopefully you had a fantastic week and you're thinking, well, now what? We don't want you to wait a year and just come back and see us in Asheville. We want to see you in Asheville, but we'd like to see you between now and then. So if any of these areas interest you, I invite you to come and check it out. You can find the next calls available on our community calendar on our website. Now, this is not a static list. This list changes based on the needs of the community. So we added 4 new clusters in the last year. Those were open science, the Council of Data Facilities, wildfires, and our newest cluster, operational ethics, all in the last year. We had a few clusters decide that maybe they were going to go on a hiatus. They didn't quite have the energy, weren't sure where they were going, and that's okay, right? We want your time that you put into ESIP to feel well spent. And if the needs emerge for those clusters to start back up again, we will be here for them to do that. We also have started in the last year our new Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Justice Advisory Committee that will be transitioning to a more permanent administrative committee later this year. I want to especially call out the accomplishments of a few clusters this year. The cloud computing cluster has had record turnout, and you probably saw that here this week as well with their sessions. They have been working to engage dynamic private sector speakers and have just had tremendous momentum. Another group with great momentum is the Data Readiness Cluster. They continue to be very strong, and our Information Technology and Interoperability Committee has had a new format that they took on called Rants and Raves, and that has really increased engagement and participation with that committee as well. It's important to me to highlight that the quantity of participants in a cluster is not necessarily the only measure of success. The Sustainable Data Management Cluster is, while not attracting huge crowds, though the unconference session was very popular yesterday, I noticed, they have been working on cultivating relations and learning from experts on the care principles and compiling a soon-to-be-completed publication on recommendations to repositories for implementing care principles. Like with FAIR, it is one thing to talk about principles. It is another thing to really think about the practical implications they have for repositories and individuals. That is where I see this community as uniquely positioned to make a meaningful impact. So help me out and go into our Slido poll and let us know what you see as a strength of ESIP's cluster model. What is one way we could enhance collaborations and functionality? Another way to see ESIP in action is at our data help desk events. This is a form of outreach where we take our work directly to the researcher. I hope you've seen them. We set up booths at large scientific society meetings and we staff them with you. You are our community of experts, and we provide that place where that researcher can connect directly with data science experts in the community to help make their data more fair, more open. Perhaps it's finding a data set, perhaps it's figuring out where to put their data set. We've had some great conversations about careers in data management. There is growing enthusiasm for the data help desk, both on the researcher and the expert side. There is still a need for both general and highly specific support around finding, accessing, analyzing, and citing data, and software too. That said, data help desks are a heavy lift. There is a lot of work that goes into setting up these events, and we have set a precedent of providing both in-person and online support. Our relationships with our society partners, especially AGU and EGU, are really strong, but we also do events with GSA, ESA, AMS, ooh, the acronyms, sorry about that, folks. We try and be all the places we are needed, but I will highlight this as a need for ESIP. This effort is currently mostly unfunded. We have tried tapping into many different angles to fund the data help desk. We have some proposals outstanding, but we need to chart our course forward, funded or unfunded, for this work and figure it out, because this is an area with tremendous impact, tremendous potential, and tremendous demand. This year, moving on to our ESIP lab, the focus of our ESIP lab awards was wildfire and water. And like Annie said at the lab plenary, like we pride ourselves on being relevant and right where we need to be. But sometimes I just really wish we weren't quite so relevant, especially with the flooding we've seen here in Vermont recently. So this year with the ESIP lab, a change that we made was we raised the cap on lab awards from $10,000 to $20,000. With this, it was our hope to increase the pool of proposals and to fund really exciting projects. The ESIP lab aims to be a catalyst. We are excited to partner with this year's crop of funded projects listed here, who are all working to advance topics including forest monitoring, pollinator composition, fog detection, and drinking water service area boundaries. We have seen how an investment of just $5,000 to $10,000 to an early career researcher or a new group effort can take an idea from concept to reality. We often like to celebrate when a project that started in the ESIP lab goes on to bigger and better things and sustained funding. I was really excited to connect with Jensen last night at the poster making. For a while, we've held him up as the poster child of starting in the ESIP lab and really launching into much bigger and more sustained funding. So today I'm excited to share that Professor Chung-Bao Lee from North Dakota State's recent lab project that aimed to combine field observations and modeling to better understand fluid dynamics below the ice has led to several publications and a $500,000 NSF Career Award. To think this was jump-started with just $7,000 of ESIP lab funding. That's what we're trying to do to help make that idea become reality and those really great ideas go on to just fly. So if you're tracking along with me in the poll, I think some of you maybe skipped ahead, that's okay. Another poll question for you is, where would you like to see our lab funding theme and effort go next year? What should that theme be? And lastly, our meetings in 2023. To me, it is the camaraderie and the energy of the people and the pure joy of gathering together, both virtually and like we are today, that make all the work more fun. Just look at these numbers here. This is community coming together. Our meetings are community contributed by all of you. So really, while our staff makes it happen, the praise goes out to all of you for contributing sessions, for speaking at sessions, and for bringing your energy into the room. I have noticed that we typically have about 1/3 of our audience as first-time attendees at any meeting in any given year. But I want to make sure we are doing all that we can to engage those first-time attendees. There are many people that we are celebrating into retirement, and we need to make sure that we are bringing in that next generation to keep our profession and to keep our community as vibrant as we can. So in the poll, I want to hear from you. If you're a first-time attendee, what attracted your attention this week? What interests you most about ESIP? So that we can understand and use that as a selling point to bring others into the community. And then for all of you, do you have ideas on how we can engage newcomers? Because that's really important, and I would love to hear from all of you on that. Another focus of ours in the last few years has been on enhancing our communication functions, and I hope that you have seen and felt that. We've had a refresh of our ESIP update email. We have a new blog where we are featuring lab projects and partners. We have new graphic designs for clusters. So if you're doing a webinar series and you want something that's easily shareable on social media, we can help with that. We are consistently looking for new ways to connect with our community and expand our reach to new audiences. We even will have a new website next month that we are very excited for you to see. So in our poll, you will find a few communications questions. They're really specific because figuring out where to reach you and where you are helps us package our communications in the way that's going to resonate best with you. So we'd love to hear more from you on that. So a state of ESIP would not be complete without a bit of insight into our financials. These are our fiscal year 22 numbers that I shared with you in January. We are 3/4 of the way through this fiscal year, so it's a challenging point to share, to give you new graphs. We have completed our audit from 2022. I'm happy to say it is clean. We have no issues there. And you can see the difference between the 2 years listed here. You see the more return to business as usual, right? We have increase in program services costs with increased travel and increased meeting expenses, which is fantastic. We are so excited to be getting back out into the world in those regards. You can expect to see these numbers continue pretty much the way they are here for this fiscal year, which will end the end of September. You can see from the pie chart that most of ESIP's funding comes from federal grants. I don't think that that's a surprise to anyone here. Meeting registration and sponsorship make up a meaningful portion of our budget. And we try really hard to be fair and consistent and open and transparent when it comes to meeting registration costs, what your dollars go for, and similarly with sponsorship in terms of how we accept sponsorship dollars. If you know of an organization that you think should be sponsoring ESIP, you should all have my email. I would love to be in touch with them because this is an area I'm really looking to grow. So the sponsorship and the meeting registration costs are our only sources of revenue that cover unallowable costs to our federal grants and help us build a reserve. We don't do general fundraising asks, and so this is a really meaningful portion of our revenue. I want to share with you some additional financial statistics that most of you haven't seen before. This is a 4-year look at the financial sustainability of ESIP. So this chart, the highest bars are showing ESIP's net assets over the last 4 years. The middle set of bars shows our endowment. That is what funds the Raskin Scholarship, where we had Alexis speak at lunch the other day. And then the last set of bars is our board restricted reserve. So as you can see that over the last 4 years, the total assets of the organization have grown. Our endowment has stayed pretty flat, fluctuates with market volatility, but that's important. We want to make sure we're not taking more out of that than we are getting in investment returns. And then our reserve is growing nicely. We started 4 years ago at $30,000, and right now we are at $130,000. That might sound like a lot of money, but if we have instability in our federal government awards, that's all I've got. A healthy nonprofit should have a reserve of 3 to 6 months. So we are continuing to work with the board and to prioritize to build that reserve. And it should be eventually up in that higher range. And that would give us real peace of mind to weather any uncertainty. So ESIP, yes, we like stability. So ESIP at 25, kind of in summary, we're doing a lot of internal checks, right? I started by looking at the health of the partner assembly and really looking in and reaching out to re-engage partners that have been less active, bring in new partners, building that up, right? We did our new mission and vision, which I'm going to go into in a second. And then the bullets below that are kind of our steady steps that we are taking to enhance the stability and the strategic plan of ESIP and where we are headed in the coming years. So in January, I shared that we were working on our mission and vision. And when we opened the meeting, Ken shared with you where we have landed. I thought for the annual business meeting, I would share with the rest of you all a little bit more about that process and how we got there, because that's important to me. So our old vision started with the words, our vision was to be a leader. And I thought, I think ESIP already is a leader. One, and there's a lot of leadership that happens here at ESIP, but also to say we want ESIP to be a leader is rather internally looking, right? I wanted us to have a vision that said to the world, when this organization has worked itself out of a job, when we have worked ourselves out of existence and solved the problems we are working on, what does that look like? And then similarly, our mission started with the words to support. And I agree that the staff of ESIP is here to support the community. But I wanted the mission to encompass the mission of the community, not just the mission of the staff. And words like to support, if you're trying to go out to foundation funders, they're just not strong enough to really capture the true power of this community. So we initiated an 18-month process that was grounded, it came out of Harvard Business Review by a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins, and we used his visioning framework. We worked with the board for about 12 months, and we got it solid where we thought we wanted it, but that wasn't good enough. We then engaged a group of stakeholders active in the community for different lengths of time to really provide us with more feedback on that. That group of people, they don't hold back. I do want to thank that group of people. That was Mark Parsons, Douglas Rao, Steve Diggs, Kathy Todd Brown, Abby Benson, Elizabeth Joyner, and Ruth Dewar. If you know those individuals, they don't hold back. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit just how we got to this, right? So ESIP's vision is a world where data-driven solutions are a reality for all by making earth science data actionable by all who need them anytime, anywhere. This vision, people were really excited about starting with a world, right? We all know that ESIP is primarily funded by US federal agencies, but the reach of this organization is not bounded by geographical boundaries. We have partners in other parts of the world. We would love to have more partners in other parts of the world, but the work that we do is not for the United States alone, right? So people were really excited about starting with a world, right? A world where data-driven solutions are a reality for all. For all was there very, very intentionally to look at inclusivity and who should benefit for our work. I was blown away 2 years ago when our theme was data for all people. We had plenary speakers from an Indigenous community that told me they thought data for all people was pretty restrictive and that the work we do benefits more than just people. So the for all is kind of part of that piece of it that we were, it's for all benefit, right? To make earth science data actionable by all who need them anytime, anywhere. Well, you wouldn't realize it, the all who need them, right? We didn't say to make earth science data available for everybody, right? This vision's big enough. That would be even bigger. And I think about the user needs session that we had earlier and thinking about who is our target audience of who are we trying to make this data available for. And the anytime, anywhere, I'm going to give credit to President Ken Casey here. Those were two words he was really passionate about and got a lot of support for those as well. So ESIP's mission: empower innovative use and stewardship of earth science data to solve our planet's greatest challenges. So we moved from to support to empower. We felt that that had more weight. Use and stewardship. The original version was use and management. Oh, people didn't like management very much at all in our feedback group. We felt stewardship had a much richer meaning than just management. And then there was a lot of discussion around to solve our planet's greatest challenges. Some people said, I want our work to solve challenges. They don't have to be the planet's greatest challenges, right? Like, I'll cite another example. If somebody can go fishing and have a good day fishing because they know where the fish are because of our work, like that's really great. I agree, but I made the case that when we are trying to tell people who don't know what ESIP is about the work that we're doing, a statement like our planet's greatest challenges carries more weight about the magnitude of the impact we aim to have and we do have. There was also discussion, Douglas brought this up, well, is it the planet's greatest challenges or is it society's greatest challenges? And many people pointed out, right, the planet's going to be just fine. We might not be here, but the planet will be. So we thought about what would society's greatest challenges look like, and we felt that there are many societal challenges that need addressing that are not going to be addressed here at ESIP. Right. And so we use the word planet to ground us in our Earth Science Foundation and to center it there. So our core values, we actually used a data-driven approach to derive this list. For those of you who recall, ESIP's previous list of core values was much longer, and they were all wonderful words. But because the list was so long, I feel like they kind of got rushed through and we didn't really focus on them. And in the framework that we used, the author said that you really can only have 3 to 5 core values. If you have more than that, they aren't truly core. So we actually did a voting and we got out spreadsheets and we voted and we ranked and we tested each value with 5 questions to really help us identify what was truly core. And that was how we arrived at this list that you see here. Now, that group of people that we challenged to poke holes in our work said, that's a nice list of 5 words, but you need more words. You need to tell us what those values really mean. And I thought, do you know how much wordsmithing we've been through? Oh, you want us to write more words? Okay. So that is where we came up with the longer statements that you have here under each one. And then we actually have a formal statement that's even longer than this. And when our new website launches, you will find those there. But I hope that in this week, you have felt in this community the integrity, the inclusiveness, the collaboration, the openness, and the curiosity throughout the week in all the work that we've done together. So with that, I am going to move to our one formal piece of business, and that is voting to endorse a document called the Santa Barbara Charter. I don't know if ESIP has ever done an in-person vote. I have to believe you've done in-person votes before, but moving to figure out an in-person vote when we've done them online for so many years now, it's a little scary, I'm not going to lie. So as a community serving organization, ESIP welcomes open discussion of all products, services, and official statements for the advancement of earth sciences. From time to time, community consensus is built within ESIP on highly relevant and timely products, services, or issues. These are opportunities for ESIP to make an endorsement, which can bring concordance and direction for the benefit of the larger community. That comes straight from the ESIP endorsement policy, which is on our GitHub in our policies and procedures. It's important for me to say that this endorsing a statement like this does not bind any partner organizations to subsequent actions. It is more just a statement of support and hopefully elevates the document and gives it more weight. So the Santa Barbara Charter came out of an event in February at the Environmental Data Management Summit that was hosted by NCEAS. It had a focus on increasing diversity in environmental data science. There were a number of specific actions and initiatives that came out of the event that included the formation of the ESIP Operational Ethics Cluster. And the Santa Barbara Charter was another document that came out of that event that said, we want to plant a flag in this moment, and we want to say things that we stand for that we think will increase diversity in this field. So per ESIP's endorsement process, a proposal was brought to the program committee where it was reviewed, and it was put forward to the assembly of organizational partners for 30-day comment period. No comments were received, so we are now at the point where we bring the document to the assembly for a vote. It is my hope that ESIP endorsement of this document will help expand its reach and aims. This document was signed on by individuals, and I could have signed it individually, but I thought, how can we use our position to get more visibility for this document? And so that is why it went through the endorsement process. So like I said, for the past few years, we have done this electronically. We're going to do it in person and online. Those of you who are the voting reps for your partner organizations have a colored card. And when I call for the vote, I want you to raise that card at the appropriate time as you see fit. And those of you that are online, you can vote in the chat, or you can vote by direct message, whichever you prefer. So with that, you can read the charter up here. These are the key principles of it. It is a much longer document, which was circulated to the entire partner assembly. But with that, I would like to call for a vote to endorse the Santa Barbara Charter. All of those in favor, please raise your card. Thank you. I see you behind the camera. Thank you. Are any opposed? Okay, is there anything online that's exciting that I need to know about? Lots of yeses. Okay, with that, I think that we have potentially unanimous support to endorse the Santa Barbara Charter. In case it got contentious, I was ready to go online and we could count every vote, and I was ready. So coming up, looking forward, after the ESIP staff takes a little bit of a break to recover from this week, we have a really, really busy fall. I am excited that very soon, we are very close, I believe, to having a new cooperative agreement with NOAA for 5 years. And we are, we're gonna hit the ground running with that one, sprinting perhaps. We're excited for those of you that attend NOAA's AI workshop. That will be in September, and ESIP will be helping with some of the technology for that event. And then in October, something really exciting. I heard this week a lot, oh, there's a gap. We're not working with undergraduates. How can we engage undergraduates? And ESIP is supporting NOAA in their GOZAR Data Jam, which is specifically working with undergraduate groups in that project. So we're excited to be doing that. I know I will see a number of you at International Data Week in October. That will be my first international trip with ESIP, and I'm really looking forward to that. And then, of course, I know that we will see many, many of you in San Francisco for AGU. With that, I want to jump the gun, and I want to say the next time I want to see you all is at Ignite in San Francisco. We are about to start our venue search process for this. For those of you who are not familiar with Ignite, it is a fun and social evening of fast-paced lightning talks. Given what I saw upstairs in the Funding Friday pitches, if you can do that, you can do an Ignite talk. And we would love to get you up on the big stage and have you give a fast-paced, energetic talk about your science. And Annie does a terrific job of supporting our Ignite speakers through that. So I hope we will see you at Ignite. Looking forward to next year. These are our meeting dates and locations. You know, COVID's still real. I'm not feeling bad about a virtual meeting, but there's other reasons to have a virtual meeting. Our virtual meetings are engaging many more people than can travel. It's more accessible. It lowers the barriers to attend. It's helpful for people with disabilities. It's helpful for students. So we will see you virtually in January, and we are super excited to be going to Asheville, North Carolina for our July meeting. So block your calendars, put in your travel requests. We want to see you all there. So with that, I have a few thank yous that I could not wrap up without acknowledging. I really want to thank our sponsors. AWS is our silver level sponsor. Esri and SSAI, a new sponsor, thank you, were our coffee break sponsors. I know you all really appreciated them. AGU was our research showcase sponsor, and Element 84 was our reusable lanyard sponsor. Speaking of that, when you depart, there is a bin on the registration desk. Please return your lanyards, recycle your badges. We're working really hard to make sure our meetings are as sustainable as they can be. I have to thank our ESIP community fellows. I hope that you saw them this week. I hope that you felt their presence. They did anything we ask of them all week long, and they're just a tremendous group of people that I hope will stay in this community. I love nothing more to see community fellows grow in their career and grow with ESIP. When I say they did anything we ask of them this week, that includes when I talked to a few of them and I said, get back into the research showcase room and eat more cake, because we had extra, and they were on it. They were like, we got it. We'll eat more cake. It was awesome. So they are just a tremendous group. For those of you, we will have a lot of turnover in our community fellows. Someone can be a community fellow for 2 years, and we have a lot of 2-year veterans. So we will be putting out our call for new community fellows in the coming weeks. And please help us circulate that. We want to attract the best, most diverse crop of fellows that we can. And we would love to see a rise in the number of applications for that program. I also have to thank the ESIP staff. This is an incredible team, and you probably wouldn't know it, but do you know that we only see each other in person maybe 3 times a year, right? We're having our staff retreat in Asheville in the end of September, and it's really going to be a great time where we can focus on us as a team. But there is so much work that happens behind the scenes, you know, from months ago, working on cultivating sessions and supporting session conveners, to all the last minute changes and logistics, and none of that would be possible without the work that they do. So with that, it is my pleasure to turn things over to our federal sponsors. I love to give you all the opportunity to hear directly from them about the priorities of their agencies and where they are headed. We're going to start with, I'm really excited that each of our 3 federal agency voices today are new people that have not addressed the ESIP community before, which I think is tremendous. We're going to start with Joel Scott from NASA, and then we have Jessica Morgan, who will be joining us online from NOAA, and Viv Hutchinson from USGS. So with that, I will turn it over to Joel.
Hello, ESIP. I want to just start by having everybody take a moment to take a big deep breath in and let it go. It has been a week, hasn't it? This is my first ESIP, and it has been so electrifying, and I am indebted to ESIP for organizing such a great meeting, but really more, I tip my hat to you as a community. This week would not have been what it was had it not been each of you showing up day in, day out, inspiring these conversations, bringing your energy, bringing your creativity, bringing your ideas to this community, to this meeting. So thank you. We made it. It's been a week. It's the last day. We made it to Friday. Thank you for sticking in here, and I will try not to take too much time so we can get to our other valuable speakers. As Susan mentioned, my name is Joel Scott. I'm the program executive for Earth Science Data Systems that sits at NASA headquarters. And so I'll be giving you our NASA agency updates today. So let's start with who I am and why I'm here. There has been some movement and changes at headquarters, and so I think it's helpful just from a perspective to understand who does what, who's responsible for what, who's the belly button for what. And so I really hate org charts, but we're going to start with an org chart. Please bear with me. So again, there's been new faces at headquarters, and I would just love to step through who a couple of those are. There's some familiar names here at the top of this chart, and that is Kevin Murphy and Katie Baines, or at least I hope they're familiar. They have been an integral part of the Earth data community for a very long time. And as you know, Kevin Murphy moved into the role of Chief Scientist Science Data Officer at NASA headquarters. Now, and his deputy is Katie Baines. Now, what that means is he's looking across the entire Science Mission Directorate. So not just Earth science, but also heliophysics, astrophysics, planetary science, and more, looking at data strategy for the agency, looking at how science data is being handled, looking at how science compute is being handled. There are other different parts of the Chief Science Data Office as well. There's the Open Source Science Initiative led by Steve Crawford. There's the Transform to Open Science 5-year mission led by Shel Ginteman, who's an IPA. And then there's also our core services. Some of you may be familiar with the name Andy Mitchell. He was the project manager for ESDIS for a while. And now he has moved up to headquarters and he's looking at core services. So what that means is looking at our strategy and our offerings for data and compute across all of the Science Mission Directorate. So like I mentioned, all of those different divisions, even beyond Earth, looking at how NASA's data and compute offerings can be responsive to the needs of all of the science community. And there's that box in purple, and this is my favorite box, maybe because my name's there, but also because we do a lot of important work, and we are a big part of the Chief Science Data Office portfolio. And that box is led by Cerise Albers and myself. So Cerise Albers is the lead program executive for Earth Science Data Systems. She's been in that role for a little bit over a year now. And then I also took on this role operating functionally as her deputy back in February. And it has been a wonderful few months to get to know the community, to get to know our Earth Science Data Systems enterprise. And many of you in the room who also contribute to that, as well as being able to work with interagency partners and our commercial partners as well. So I think this meeting is such a valuable space that brings all of those folks together. Again, org charts are boring, so let's keep moving. We'll get one more org chart slide, and then I swear we'll have some more interesting things to talk about. So I just wanted to show some faces here because you'll be seeing us moving into the future. Like I said, there's been new hires, there's been a lot of movement at headquarters. It's helpful to know who's in charge of what. And so when I say Earth Science Data Systems, what does that mean? We never actually sound out this acronym. We say ESDS. ESDS has something and EOSDS is something else. But I just want to kind of talk about what's within this program. And so Cerise is the lead program executive. I operate functionally as her deputy. We retain the same power and privilege of that role. And we're really trying to lead this program and think strategically about where we're heading, what missions are on the horizon, and how we can make sure our program stays dynamic and agile, meeting the needs of the agency, of our interagency partners, as well as the community out there to really enable that science and enable data being put in a decision-making context as well. So the different elements of our program are ESDIS, our Earth Science Data Information System, and that is led by a project manager, Ted Subcheck, who's also new in that role, and by his whole team of amazing folks who have provided such continuity of service to that big entity that exists within the NASA ecosystem. Now, ESDIS includes our DACs, our SIPs, and so much more. So if you're a part of any of those entities, thank you. You are what makes this all really, really possible. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention our other elements that are part of the program, such as our Impact Office that sits at Marshall, led by Rahul and another amazing team of folks. And some of y'all have come here from Impact, so thank you for being here and engaging. We also have our web strategy and communications team led by Andy Thomas, and I know a number of you are also a part of that team. And that's such an important aspect because they're the ones helping us be compliant with the IDEA Act that passed in 2018, talking about web unification and modernization, and making sure that our websites are responsive to the community, making sure they're optimized for search, making sure our assets and our data are easy to find, engage with, and explore. And then also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this last group of two really special people to our program. We have two program scientists that are funded out of headquarters, and that's Alexei Shiklemanov as well as Jennifer Way, bringing their subject matter expertise to our program, their great depth of knowledge, their passion for data science and data systems. So again, that's the last org chart, I swear. We'll talk about why I'm here. If y'all didn't know, this is my first ESIP meeting, and so I am so grateful and blown away by the enthusiasm and vigor of this community. And I just want to also take a moment to say thank you for engaging with me through this week. And my door is always open. I love to hear from everyone in the community, especially with our interagency partners and our commercial partners as well. So why I'm here to listen fundamentally, but I'm also here to represent the agency, NASA headquarters, our agency strategy, our agency vision, as well as the Chief Science Data Office, where we are heading strategically also as a program, as Earth Science Data Systems. I'm also here to be a resource to you. Like I said, my door is open. My phones are always on for better or worse. My email box is open. I get more of those than I want, but that is my job. It's to be a resource to you. It's to listen to you and understand your needs as a community. It's to lead this program. It's to answer your questions. It's to share our agency initiatives, our priorities, our strategic directions, where we are heading. And that is why I am here. So again, I want to engage with each of you. I love hearing what you're passionate about. I love hearing your ideas. I love hearing all the things that are pressing and important topics to you. So again, thank you for engaging me this week, and please don't ever be a stranger. All right, finally, we'll get to the good stuff. Where we are as NASA Earth Science, basically where we are now and where we are headed in the future. That's one of the fun roles of being at headquarters is you get a look at that perspective and see where we're heading, what's on the horizon, and how can we prepare for that? So we are the US's space agency. So I'd be remiss if I didn't start with our Earth fleet chart. So again, we have 26 assets on orbit, orbiting our Earth, collecting valuable observations about them. And they're not all just the same sensor in the same mission. There are a variety of different sensors observing our planet in a variety of different ways. And that's important because our Earth is not just an Earth system, it's a system of systems. You have the atmosphere, the ocean, the cryosphere, you have the terrestrial ecosystems as well. And all these systems, they have processes that make them up. And we don't even fully understand all of those processes within one single system. But then it's a system of systems. Those systems interact with each other. So I appreciate this room as being systems engineers and data science folks. And I think a lot of you really appreciate systems. And I love to take a systems perspective when we think about how to advance Earth science. You need to look at these systems from a variety of ways, but you also need interoperability between your systems because just like the Earth system of systems, they interact with each other. Our satellite data needs to do the same. The other thing I like to point out on this chart is those missions that are in blue in that really inner circle of this Earth cornucopia. Blue means they're in extended operations, which means they've outlived their design life, which to me is such a testament to our ability to build amazing technology and launch really successful missions to study our planet Earth. So the fact that they've outlived their design life means that they're doing better than we thought they initially would, than we planned for them to, but they're still up there and collecting valuable information about our Earth, our planet, its climate, how all those systems are changing. And they're continuing to collect an amazing amount of data. And that really is what powers our data systems at NASA. So this is our highlights from our last fiscal year. And I really there's a couple numbers. There's a lot of information on this slide, but I think it's a testament to NASA Earth and what we are doing to help enable the science community, the decision maker community, and all that users out there who can benefit from satellite observations of our home planet. The number I usually like to point out here is we have 72 petabytes of data in our Earth data system. That is a lot of data, because we have such a heritage of robust missions that are collecting this valuable data. And of that, just last year, we served out 3.3 billion data products to over 1.7 million unique users. And those numbers, I just want you to reflect on for a minute. That's a lot of data getting to a lot of folks, helping to inform a lot about the science of our planet, helping understand how we as humans can continue to thrive, hopefully, here on this planet. I always like to highlight NASA as a non-regulatory agency. We are not setting regulation, we are not setting policy, but we are collecting valuable data that we are wanting to help enable those of you who are in a regulatory space in the government to be able to do your work, to do your job, to be able to make sure that we can all work together and continue to thrive on this planet. So I also just want to point out that that is a big amount of data, and we have over 3.56 billion files in the Earth Data Archive, which is a lot to keep track of. So if you're on the team that does CMR, if you're on the team that does Earth Data Search, if you're on the team that does Worldview, thank you so much, because that is a lot of data to deal with. And you do it to a high level of customer satisfaction. It's weird to think about customers in the government. Every taxpayer out there is a customer, and we want to make sure we're good stewards of your dollars and to make sure that we're doing the most with our data systems as well as our satellite observations. So we do conduct annually the American Customer Satisfaction Survey, and we have consistently very high scores relative to the rest of the government. We're at 79 as of last year. So again, that's where we are, but where are we headed? And this is the plot that keeps me up at night. This is the one that scares me. As I mentioned, there's 26 assets on orbit right now. There are 11 more in formulation. And those, it's really a testament to NASA. I am proud of our team in flight and technology who have developed these amazing sensors, mature different technologies, build and launch robust platforms. But with technological advancement also comes an increase in data size. So we've got some missions coming up on the horizon that definitely are going to be a challenge when it comes to dealing with data and dealing with science. Right now, we're at 72 petabytes at the end of last fiscal year. Over the next 10 years, we're going to see a 10-fold increase in data volume. Do any of you know how to work with 700 petabytes of data? It's a good question to stop and think about. And that's what we're trying to tackle these problems together, to move from a paradigm of downloading files to your local system or your local server cluster and thinking about how can we leverage the technological innovation that has happened in data science and data systems to be able to work with this volume of data more efficiently and to continue to make our science accessible, reproducible, interoperable, and fair. So as we look to the future, we have some exciting missions coming up. For those of you who don't necessarily know, the National Academies puts out a survey every 10 years about Earth science priorities. And NOAA, NASA, and USGS, we all look at that. It's effectively our Bible. We look at that and say, this is what we need to look at. So the last one came out in 2017. So we're midway in implementing this. That survey said there are designated observables you need to look at. And that's what you're seeing on this chart. And from that, NASA has built out a handful of missions that we are looking to launch in the coming few years that will help give us a holistic perspective of the Earth as a system of systems. Again, surface biology, geology, clouds, convective precipitation, and aerosols, which became the mission Atmosphere Observing System, AOS, as well as mass change. These will help us look at different ecosystems together. If you want to study water, that exists in every ecosystem. It's in the atmosphere as water vapor. It's in the ocean, obviously. It's in the cryosphere. It exists in terrestrial hydrology and ecosystems. There's groundwater storage. You need all of these different types of missions just to begin to answer questions about the water and water cycle and where that energy and mass move through. So that's what we're really excited about looking to the future. And these will be cutting edge missions that will also really help balloon that data volume. So that is what's on the horizon. That's what's coming. We're really excited for these missions, and they will be launching in the next few years. And we are preparing for that at NASA. Another big, hopefully not new initiative to any of y'all is open source science. And this is something NASA has been thinking about for a long time. And you can see on this slide that this is what it means to us. But honestly, what we're trying to get at the heart of open source science is making sure things are open and transparent and reproducible. Those are all tenets of the scientific process. What do you think the methods section of your publications has always been about? It's been about transparency and reproducibility. But as science has continued to evolve through the years, so has our means of doing science. Our compute mechanisms have evolved, our software has evolved, our data has evolved. So we have to periodically reassess this and say, what are we doing to make sure that we're transparent or reproducible, to make sure that our science can be built upon by others, expanded, and really help bring new faces to the table. As Susan mentioned, we are facing challenges as a planet, as society, as humanity. And we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to be able to thrive under a changing climate. And so that involves bringing more minds to the table, hearing different perspectives, making sure that our science is accelerated, making sure it's not just accelerated to go faster, but making sure it's robust, that we're doing it in a robust way, that it's transparent and it's reproducible. So that's really what we're looking at here, is making sure our science, our data, our publications are inclusive, they're accessible, they're transparent, and they're most importantly reproducible. If we can't reproduce what someone has done, how are we really moving the science forward? So NASA's not doing this alone. As hopefully you've heard, the White House announced 2023 as a year of open science. We're halfway through that. So I like to also point to this and say, this doesn't mean we're just now starting. It doesn't mean we're just now engaging, but this is a year to be intentional about what we're doing, about our data strategies, about where we're heading, and about how we can work together. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we are trying to build upon the progress that other industries have made, medical industry, healthcare industry, data science, social media. There's a lot of open source software and technologies out there. Let's bring those things and best practices to the science community, and let's make sure that we meet our community where they are. There are folks who are in a variety of positions when it comes to openness, when it comes to open source science, when it comes to cloud compute, and we want to make sure we're providing a level of offerings that are accessible to all of them so they can help join us together and do amazing science together. So again, there's 16 other agencies that are also involved in supporting this and a partner in a year of open science. And you can go to open.science.gov to learn more about those partners, as well as see their quarterly updates and what they're doing. So what is NASA specifically doing? Well, hopefully you heard about this during Kevin Murphy's talk back in the winter meeting, but if you didn't, I'll quickly cover it again. So last November, we updated our science data policy. We call that SPD 41A. I'm sorry, more acronyms. I'm doing my best to spell those out, but this is one that it's science policy it's a science policy directive at NASA. The A means it was updated. So the elements you see on this slide are effectively the changes. The elements in blue that you see are the changes that were from SPD 41 to 41A. So the good news is we have been doing open science for a long time. That has been our science data policy, but times change, practices change. There's always more we can do. So we worked with our science communities across all the different divisions. We worked with legal, OGC, Office of General Counsel. We worked with our information technical overlords at NASA to make sure we were all within policy and compliance as an agency. And we also worked with, again, most importantly, communities to really revise what needed to be revised and make sure this makes sense and we can open up as much as possible and make sense when it comes to open science. And so that's what this is about. You can Google this, you can find it, but it was signed signed into effect back in November. So this is NASA policy, and it's really forward-looking. We encourage existing missions and investigators to apply these principles to their work where it makes sense, where it's possible, within resources allowed. But this really applies to things looking forward. And we're making sure that our scientific data is open and fair and citable. We're making sure our mission data is also open, and that we are building upon a robust history. NASA has provided free and open accessible data since 1994. But like I mentioned, there's always more we can do. We're opening up software, making sure our science software is open and citable and transparent, as well as our mission software. We're making sure that there's no period of exclusive access to a lot of our data and software. And then also, it's the whole science process from start to end, including our publications. And an important thing I like to touch on here is that NASA's never going to ask you as its community members to do something that we're not willing to equip you to do. So we're looking at revising our policies, as you see here, our infrastructure, our funding models, as well as our community resources. And so we're looking at things from all those different perspectives to make sure that we are equipping you with the ability to be compliant with our policy. We're not here to make a mean policy and then say, go do this and do it on your own. We're here to try to equip you as a community to do that. So speaking of different funding models, I know open source science can often have different funding consequences and different levels of effort, and time is money. So we also offer through our ROSA solicitation, which you can always access and find updates on through our Inspires website, linked at the bottom there. Just Google it, NASA Inspires. It's all of our announcements of opportunity and our funding opportunities. So we have a few that are listed here that are helpful when it comes to looking at how to do your open source science. Some of these are meant to be augmentations to existing awards. Maybe you didn't ask for something to be open, but now you're like, I could really make this code open if I had X amount more dollars and I want to augment my award. There's a solicitation for that. There's a solicitation looking at tools, libraries, and services, things that might not be there, but you really are like, I could do this and I want to do this, but I just don't have time. I just don't have support. There's a solicitation for that. If you think you have high priority open source science, a really important project that could append the community and really enable a bunch of folks to do open science more freely, there's a solicitation for that. So again, if you have questions, I'm here as a resource. Please come ask me them. Also check out our ROSAs and our Inspires website. If you are an early career person, if you're new to the community, I encourage you to go sign up for our listserv. You will get notice of all the announcements. Maybe it's a little spammy at times. You get a lot of emails, but wouldn't you rather find out about a funding opportunity than not? Anyway, so that's enough on funding. We'll also talk about how we in NASA Earth Data are preparing for the future. So you've seen the landscape. We're trying to reach new communities of users. We're trying to make sure our science is accessible. You've seen that data chart that scares me. So what are we actually doing to equip ourselves for that? Well, as we look to our future missions, they are leveraging cloud compute from end to end. Our SWAT mission, which recently launched, is fully in the cloud, and we're so proud of that. From ingest to processing to archive to being served out, it is completely in the cloud. And that enables a lot of different things, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. And our NISAR mission, which will launch early next year, will also be in the cloud, fully end to end. And we're very proud of that because that one has big data volumes. Think like 1 terabyte per file. How would you even start to work with that? So our ESDIS teams, our DAC teams, our Alaska Satellite Facility DAC has really built some amazing tools to work with NISAR data. We're excited about that because, again, if we put things into a cloud, but they're not in a usable, interoperable format, what good is that? If the data is not here to enable your science, what good is that? And then also our upcoming Earth System Observatory missions, or ESO missions, they will also leverage cloud, a common set of service-based processing architecture in the cloud, and that will use industry-based products and specifications. And so we're excited for that as well, because that will enable some amazing things to be done. And again, so that's where we're headed in the future. But what about our current data holdings? What about those 72 petabytes of data? Well, we don't want to orphan them on-premise hardware. We want to make sure all of our data are interoperable. So we are migrating all of those data to the cloud as well. And that's an important push for us right now, because we want that rich climate record, that heritage of data, to be able to come with us into the cloud, to be alongside our future missions, alongside our processing, alongside our data holdings, so that it is all interoperable and we can truly move forward together. Right now, we've moved 33 petabytes, over 33 petabytes into the cloud. That's over 2,500 data collections. We started with our top 75 popular data sets. And so as those have moved into the cloud, actually, this has been mostly an imperceptible change to most of you in the community. And that's because if you continue to do science in the current model, as you have, NASA's data will always be free and accessible. As you move into the cloud, though, you add other functionality. You put your data in place next to compute ability. It helps you be able to have more interoperable tools that are cloud native and cloud operable. And so therefore, you can move to this paradigm of not needing to download a bunch of files, to just being able to open a data set and work with things in the cloud, which really is our future. As we think about growing data volumes, I don't want to limit just science to folks who have a big server cluster at their R1 institution and that they have that ability to download terabytes and petabytes of data to work with it. We want to be able to be inclusive and accessible to someone who may just have a laptop. So that's where we're headed with this, our visualization, exploration, and data analysis tool, Veda. And so this is really, it's an example of where we're thinking and where we're heading as we move into the future. And that's leaning on in-place processing, in-place search, discovery, analysis, publication, and communication. So there are 4 different elements to Veda, and I'll move quickly because I think I've already gone over time. But we really want to make sure that as we move into the cloud, we're providing tools that are interoperable and really help enable discovery and scientific advancement. So we have things like dynamic rendering of satellite data as it comes into the Earth system. So you can explore features as that data hits our systems, emerging things that are dynamically rendered. And so that's a really interactive way to explore and discover data without ever needing to download a file, without having to deal with a whole bunch of different interfaces. Again, this tool is in the cloud, it's open source, and it's multi-mission supporting. So that way you can explore different types of data sets that may be complementary, even though they might be in different formats behind the scenes. We're working on tools and services that really make those things interoperable. The next element of Veda is analyze. And so that's leveraging a 2I2C implementation of Jupyter Hub so that it really lowers that barrier of entry to be able to get to cloud processing without ever having to download a file. You can look at somebody else's code. You can write your own code. You can see how a figure was made. You can change a color palette. Maybe something's not really great for colorblind folks, but you want to make a figure more accessible. You can go in there and see what the code was. You can put different things in there. You can change algorithms and say, well, what if I did it this way? What does that do? You can build upon other people's work. Hopefully, many of you are familiar with Jupyter notebooks as well as Python. And so that's what we're leaning into because it seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm from the community around that. But we are continually looking to how we can broaden and diversify our services to meet you all where you are in terms of the tools and services that are most useful to the community out there. So that's great. You explore data, you discover data, you analyzed it, you change things, you tweak things, you have a result. Well, what good is it if it's all stuck in the cloud? You can't share it out, you can't publish it. So publish is an important aspect. And again, one thing I have not yet mentioned, but Veda builds upon a lot of our existing tools and APIs, our application interfaces. And that really helps bring together a lot of the existing work that we have put into our Earth Data Enterprise so that we can take that and then be able to leverage it to really make really great visuals and storytelling narratives to be able to publish this out for other people to discover and then build upon so they can also work with our code. And like I mentioned, so it's great you can publish it out, but I think another important element of the scientific process is telling what we've done. And visuals and data are so great at telling a story, but they have to be put in that right format. You really want a dynamic visual storytelling narrative. You really want something that you can move across to see what happened to the night lights before and after a hurricane's passage. What happens to different data when you look at it? It can tell such a rich story that shows the human impact of different disasters, different features, different things that we're collecting with our Earth data. So this really helps you not just explore different data, analyze it, conduct your science, publish it out, but then also build a rich storytelling narrative around the type of science that NASA data can power and enable. So bringing this all to a close, what is our current outlook and what are the take-home points I want you to go away with? Well, our upcoming missions are going to pose big data challenges, but we're also committed to open source science. And why are we doing that? Well, we really want to make sure that we accelerate robust scientific discovery. We want to broaden and make scientific data from NASA's Earth observations as applicable to as many folks as possible. We want to welcome more people to the table. We want to hear their ideas. We need these minds in the room tackling these big challenges that we're facing as we move into the future. We want to increase the transparency and reproducibility of our science. We want to make sure we're doing things in a robust way. We're not trying to hide things. We want it all out in the open. So as we look to the future, how is NASA working to get there? Well, we are making sure that we will leverage cloud data and compute. It's scalable, it's agile. And when you get to the economies of scale that NASA has, there's also some cost savings that we can leverage with our commercial partners. We also want to make sure that we don't orphan our heritage data sets. We want to make sure that we bring this robust history, climate record of Earth observations with us into the cloud, make sure it's interoperable with our future systems so that we can build upon this great heritage of missions and data that we have collected. And we want to really make sure that we're building out our multi-mission, open source, cloud-based tools and ecosystems to enable people to access that science easier, to engage with our data. That's what we're thinking. That's what's on the horizon. That's kind of the pressure points. So I'll just end with this. We are facing some really big challenges on Earth, on our home planet. We have amazing technology that's coming. We have exciting satellite missions coming up, and we have great data systems that power them. So let's come together and do great science. We need you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joel. That was fantastic. Next up, we have Jessica Morgan coming to us remotely to give Noah's perspective.
Okay, so hi everyone. I am so thrilled to be part of this ESIP meeting. This has been such a fantastic week. As opposed to, I was unable to join y'all in Vermont, but I've been comfy in my basement office and just thinking about all of the different interactions I've been having this whole week. It has been absolutely amazing. And so I'm really thrilled to be talking to you about what NOAA is doing. And so, and kind of a tough act to follow. My colleague at NASA kind of covered, everything. But so I'll just hone in on some of the things that NOAA is focusing on. And again, very excited to be part of this community. So, NOAA is, I like to say, apples and mangoes. It's so many different kinds of data and different kinds of customers. Our mission, it covers everything from the top of the atmosphere to the bottom of the ocean. And we have so many different types of data and different types of customers. It's really hard to wrap one's head around, what is NOAA data? NOAA's data is like pretty much everything, right? So, formulating a data strategy and an action plan, those are the kinds of federal government things that you'll hear about from all the government agencies. Oh, we have a strategy. Oh, we have an action. Well, what does that actually mean? And so what that means is NOAA is really trying to bring together a governance community. So we have our chief data officer, Tony LeBoy, and then each of our mission areas has a line office with an assistant chief data officer. And I happen to be the assistant chief data officer for NESDIS, which is a satellite service. But our other services, the fisheries, oceans, research, weather, and ships and aircraft, we all have ACDOs now. And that is a new situation. And it is a situation where we are trying to think about, through all of our different apples and mangoes missions, what are the different data communities, data issues, data holdings, data approaches. And, it's one thing to say, oh, all of our data will be available. But when we really start to think about it, we have very large data on the satellite side. We have research data. We have GIS data. We have lots of different data holdings, and we want to have the governance in place with basically the subject matter experts for each of these different blobs to really think specifically about the types of data that we are stewards of. So, oops, sorry, going back. In thinking about what are we have these data strategies, and what does that really mean? Well, how we're sort of putting that into action is we're engaging at multiple levels for policy, governance, and then action. And so, we've come a long way in this past year in terms of developing new data policies and working on best practices that I'll talk about. But what's really where we're going to be focusing next time, I hope to be able to give this update next time, is about really measuring our performance and making sure that we are adapting. We're not just getting stuck on a policy, and we are really trying to stay on top of new technologies and new user both needs, but also expectations, right? Our user communities are evolving, and we need to evolve with them. So some things that have happened recently. So NOAA, like many science agencies, we have advisory boards, which are independent of NOAA. And occasionally they tell us, hey, here's how you're doing. So our science advisory board recently released a report on kind of the state of NOAA's open science. And we have really taken these recommendations to heart. You've heard about this through from all the agencies and throughout this week, but commitments to fair and open data, really starting to think strategically and actionably about open source software, engaging with the community, and really thinking about workforce training. Do we have the workforce that we need? And are we investing in a data management, data stewardship workforce that will support all the different types of data holdings into the future? And then finally, policy. tracking, reporting. So as a government wonk, this is like my sweet spot. But really what it is can the federal agencies be accountable for all these lofty goals and visions? Are we really doing what we need to make that happen? Another new thing is open licensing. So, diving in on, what does open data mean? Open data is a culture. It's something that we kind of feel in our hearts and minds, but rubber hits the road. It comes down to things like policy and legal and licensing. So we are doing the work to make all of our data under the CC0 open license. Turns out that's harder than it looks, right? We've got, 10,000 metadata records, lots of different apples and mangoes again, but we are committed to making all NOAA data under CC0 and working with our partners to make sure that partner data is also provided openly per all those wonderful agreements. From a making things happen standpoint. So you heard from NASA, and I'm sure you hear from USGS. Federal government, we have these policies. They're administrative orders, executive orders, whatever. So from a policy standpoint, we are updating our policies. There's some acronyms in there, but what we've really done is we've updated our policy NAO 21215 with a handbook, a procedural and implementation handbook that lays out for all of the data stewards and data producers within the NOAA, many NOAA communities, exactly what you need to do to go through kind of a checklist of things for data documentation, data access, data archiving, data citation, all of those things. This handbook has been really a huge effort across the entire NOAA. And my colleague, Monica Youngman, I stole this slide from her. She was with you in the room. She's done an amazing job and really want to thank her and her co-chair, Michelle Jacoby, for making this happen. This is how we go from policy to implementation, is putting all of the information that you actually need to document a data set into one place for a NOAA scientist, NOAA data manager. The next thing we're doing, so I happen to be the co-chair of a new working group on updating our public access plan. You've heard about the OSTP 2022 memo. That came out like a month before I started this gig as the NESDIS ACDO, and I was like, wow, this is gonna be my job. This is gonna be my life. It's very exciting because what the new PAR memo says is it says, oh yeah, okay, back in 2013, we kind of laid the groundwork for things, but now we're really getting into specifics of not just the policy, make all your data publicly available immediately, but really drilling down into some of the specifics of how. So persistent identifiers, machine readability, use and reuse, things like that. And so, so our working group, we are updating the NOAA policy. We'll have that out by the end of 24. And we are gearing up to implement everything we need to do to meet these new requirements and begin basically, annual compliance tracking, sorts of things that federal agencies love to do in 2028. Kind of a slow burn, and you'll be hearing more about this, but this is actually very, very exciting for those of us in the data governance realm. So finally, I just want to say, again, thank you to the ESIP community. So this is my, let's see, second ESIP meeting that I'm attending. The first one was back in January. And I've been with NOAA for quite some time, and for some reason, I thought, oh, ESIP isn't really about the federal agencies; it's about everybody else. What I have seen in my second ESIP meeting is that these ESIP meetings are the best way for the federal agencies to interact with everyone else. It's very difficult for us to interact with academia and other federal agencies, even state and local community practitioners, all of the private industry and groups that ESIP just taps into on a daily basis. I am thrilled to be part of this community, and I've made my plan. Twice a year I will be here. I am really, really proud of NOAA's continued sponsorship of the ESIP community. So NOAA, NASA, and USGS, we all are committed to supporting what ESIP brings, not just to the data management community, but to our own agencies. So, as Susan mentioned, we are kicking off a new cooperative agreement, 5 years with ESIP to support not just ESIP's core activities that you are all familiar with, but some targeted work within the NOAA communities for really engaging our user communities beyond what the federal agencies can do on our own. We need ESIP's help to reach out to not just to universities, but to, let's say, undergraduate students. And this is a wonderful collaboration, and we're very thankful for ESIP to be our partner. And then last, just a little update on the NOAA. I'm sure that you guys are paying attention to this, but we wanted to acknowledge the work from the NOAA Weather Service and our regional and climate service teams who are really working on the situation in Vermont. I kind of have no idea what you're experiencing, but I can see online that there's a lot happening, and the Weather Service and our regional teams are really working to bring all of the different NOAA resources to whatever the local community needs in a timely manner. And so thank you again to the Weather Service and our regional teams. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jessica. Yes, those of us in Burlington, I think everyone in this room was probably woken up by thunderstorms this morning. More rain. And when you depart, you will see the National Weather Service office in Burlington is at the airport. I saw it when I landed. And last, we have Viv Hutchinson from USGS.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to double check that things are showing up on the screen all right. Maybe someone can give me a thumbs up on that. All right, I'll go ahead and start. My name is Viv Hutchison. I'm just taking on a new role called the Senior Data Advisor for USGS, and it works really closely with the Associate Chief Data Officer here at the U.S. Geological Survey. So I really appreciate the opportunity to give an update as on a number of activities that are happening in USGS that are going to sound a little bit similar to what we heard from NASA and NOAA in certain ways. And so these are obviously activities beyond, of course, accomplishing our science mission here at the USGS, which if we aren't too familiar, USGS is the bureau within the Department of Interior that's providing science about natural hazards, water, energy, minerals, and other natural resources, and the health of our ecosystems and environment, and impacts of climate and on land use change. So one thing very exciting going on at USGS this year is that we've joined the celebration of the Year of Open Science that was announced by the White House in January of this year. And we signed on early and enthusiastically and started engaging in highlighting our participation in that. And we established a Year of Open Science steering committee that included some of our executives in USGS. For example, our chief scientist, a leader of the Office of Science, Quality, and Integrity, and our Associate Chief Data Officer, and someone from the Office of Communications. So a nice group of executive leaders sponsoring the Year of Open Science. And then we also coordinated a working group to coordinate, and identify tasks that might need to be done to highlight our activities in open science. So we did establish a new website that highlights success stories in open science from USGS and announces training and building our data skills and that sort of thing. I just want to congratulate Madison Langseth of USGS for leading that group. She's done a great job. She's part of the ESIP community there. And finally, we hosted a workshop of the Community for Data Integration in May of 2023, and that was themed Open Data for Open Science. led by Leslie Shee, who's also in the ESIP audience today. She attracted about 200 attendees in person and about 400 online. So it was really great to see everyone there from ESIP. I hope a few of you in the audience were also able to attend that event. It's one of the great ways that ESIP and USGS can collaborate and overlap on some of our activities. Just a couple of other updates here. Of course, we know about the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act that required agencies to create new roles. And so the Chief Data Officer was established for each agency. That's Todd DeBolt in the Department of Interior. We also established a statistical officer and an evaluation officer at the DOI level. But that also required an associate chief data officer for each bureau. And so for that, we have Cheryl Morris, who is the associate chief data officer for USGS. And DOI also hosts a data governance board, bringing those associate chief data officers together. So I serve as an alternate on that committee for DOI. And then lastly here, the DOI Data Governance Board works together on requirements of the federal data strategy that reflect those goals in the Evidence Act. So those are the types of things that group is working on together at the DOI level. Okay, and then just to continue a little bit on that theme, within USGS, the Associate Chief Data Officer, we decided it would be best be supported by a Data Advisory Board, or the DAB, we call it. This group is advising on and supporting implementation of USGS strategic data management decisions that are required to meet federal requirements. They worked on developing a bureau-wide data management strategy that I'll talk about in just a minute this year. They advise on and support implementation of bureau-wide data management strategies, policies, and tools, and provide feedback on opportunities or impacts that new federal or DOI data management policies and requirements may have on mission operations, so we can figure out the best way to move forward with those. They advise on availability and quality of data required to support evidence-based decisions, and also our workforce development strategy to support a data-centric USGS workforce. And this group is comprised of representatives from across USGS. They represent mission areas, regions, and major offices in USGS, and their job is to then communicate back to the employees that are in their areas of representation and gather that feedback to bring back to the Data Advisory Board conversations. As a part of that Data Advisory Board, we developed a USGS data strategy in the last year, and the board discussed a lot of ways in which the data strategy would be beneficial. So there's a number of areas in which the board placed emphasis, and that was contributing to open science through consistent management of valuable data assets and driving innovation to ensure data are integratable and analysis ready, and increasing our data skills across our entire workforce, and then broadening capacity to respond to the needs of our stakeholders, and measuring our progress in producing fair data products. And the strategy itself has 5 goals and multiple objectives under those goals. We actually modeled it off of NOAA's data strategy, so we're very thankful to NOAA for having presented such a succinct and effective approach to a data strategy. I'll just highlight the vision here. It really communicates a broad decadal view from USGS. We figure we'll be working on this and improving the things we're doing for many years, but it reads, broaden the USGS data-centric culture to increase production of unbiased, accessible, high quality, and interoperable data, managed as a strategic asset and offered at scales and timeframe relevant to society's needs. So as I was mentioning before, the goals include promoting data innovation, maximizing the utility of our USGS data based on stakeholder needs and FAIR principles, coordinating common data practices, modernizing our enterprise data architecture, and enhancing our data-centric culture. And we are currently in the process of publishing the data strategy so we can post it and make it available to all. And we'll try to do that as a USGS circular coming up here in the fall. Another big thing that we did this year was update the USGS public access plans. This was mentioned earlier today. Of course, all agencies are required to do this, but we created a cross-mission working group across the Bureau to address these updates that are needed in the public access plan to align with the August 2022 OSTP memo on requirements for public access. The new requirements touch on both data and publications, we know that. And so there was a lot of coordination across the Bureau that's necessary. A lot of groups were involved in helping to update that. And our plan was approved by OSTP. So we're moving on into the implementation phase there. Most of our process updates will be related to how we handle publications and updating some policies concerning data to ensure that, you know, we have increased openness in our data and publications, as well as code and other things that support our scientific data findings. A couple other general efforts going on in open science. USGS is really starting to look at data equity. We heard some of that from NASA, so it'd be great to collaborate on that. We're just looking at how to increase data equity practices in USGS. We do participate on the National Science and Technology Council Subcommittee on Equitable Data with other federal agencies to try to identify best practices for engaging the public around equitable data and increasing equity in the development of science products as well. In terms of advancing open science, just a couple of highlights here. We've been working on a state of the data report for USGS, in which we are establishing a baseline for how fair USGS data products are. Developed a sort of a novel approach to analyzing that, looked at almost 400 data sets out of the many thousands of data sets we have, looked at how they're released, and that data release is out there in terms of how we did it. We created a rubric and an analysis of that data, and our publication is in the works and expected later in FY23 here, if that's of interest. Also, we're establishing policies for appropriate use of preprint servers and that sort of thing. We want to ensure manuscripts have received Bureau approval before posting to a preprint server, but USGS is working through that process in support of making everything as open and accessible as quickly as possible from the Bureau. And then lastly here, we just have some involvement in the Department of Interior initiatives. We were working on co-leading a working group to facilitate a transition of DOI's data, enterprise data inventory system. In other words, a catalog of all metadata available about DOI's data assets. That's a new system DOI has put together. And we're also leading a working group to increase data literacy across DOI. So that's another spot that would be great to have collaboration as well across the agencies. Last slide here, USGS loves to partner with ESIP to advance open data in data science focused agendas. And so some of the topics of interest that we're starting to look at, we'd love to partner on are, exploring the use of artificial intelligence in creating data management efficiencies. And some of the things we're thinking about are, automated metadata record creation techniques. How can we use AI to help us there? Maybe some of you have already started working on that or have a great system. I'd love to talk to you about it if you do. Also, methods for increased discoverability of smaller data sets in repositories and that kind of thing. How can we better pull those out? Some of them are very valuable for reuse and new science. And another one is, I mentioned earlier about data equity, but just identifying consistent practices to increase data equity in the federal science that we produce, and how can we best go about that? And so, USGS is certainly interested in working closely with ESIP on these goals, and excited to sort of get started on those. So with that, I will say thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate ESIP. I think it's as was noted before, I really think it's a wonderful way of bringing the agencies together and having those close conversations. So thanks for a great ESIP this week. As a remote participant, I'll say it was very successful. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Viv. And it's great to hear that it was going well online as well. We don't always see that, so I appreciate you letting us know. So with that, I would like to move on to a really fun part of this morning's program and call up Denise Hills to share the results of Funding Friday and our networking game with you all.
So I just found. Well, that's going to be interesting if I can't see it from here. Did it advance? Oh, great. Even better. So I can wander. That's better.
No. Oh, no. That's,
Annie will advance.
Oh, so Annie is going to advance it for me. Okay, great. We're agile here, right? And adaptable. Annie, if you could go ahead and advance for me. So Funding Friday, the teachers and the students. Man, I don't know how we were able to choose. They were all amazing. Thank you so much for everybody here. Our winners were Vicki Gorman for Community Science Education Program. Lisa Kin, if I got your name wrong, I really am sorry. Data Scavengers, Data and Wildfires. And Shruti, sorry, I haven't had enough coffee. Modokurti, ESIP.local. Wow, I'm so impressed with all of these. I think everybody who'd put together a poster is actually a winner. We do like to try and get a photograph of our winners, so please see Annie as we wrap this up. Go ahead for the next slide. This is our partner winners. So Eli Holmes, Nimit Kumar, and James Monroe on seed money for Jupiter Hub for Indian marine biologists. Wade Bishop for Hope, History of People of ESIP. Elizabeth Adams, Rachel Noble-Murray, Natalie Raya, and Sabes Cho, The Missing Middle. Congratulations to everyone. They were really, really fabulous. And now do I get to come up to the podium?
Nope.
One more, okay. Badge game winners. You must be present to win. Our winners, James Gallagher, Owen Littlejohns, and Amanda Lovett. Raise your hand. So, because if you're not here, I'm sorry, you lose out. Is Amanda Lovett here? Oh, there she is. Wonderful. And so I'm so glad that I had a lot of fun with this badge matching game. I got to meet new people. We do have some runners up. We have some wonderful Vermont local chocolate. Danielle Alvers, Shanna Smith, and Laura Brenskell. Raise your hands and Susan will come to you. Did people have fun with that badge game? It's a little bit different than what we've done before. I know I did. It was great. And I want to thank Alexis for figuring out doing a square on the back really helps for doing the same, different. All right. Are we ready? All right. What's next? Yeah.
So next up, we move to our leadership transition. So we moved our annual business meeting from January to July. So this year's board and program committee actually served longer than most. They served an additional 6 months to allow us to align our leadership cycle with our budget cycles. We felt this was really important, not only for accountability, but also to allow a board to set their priorities, live into those priorities, and then action those priorities. So our board and program committee from the last year can be seen here. And so I would like to ask Ken Casey, our president, to come forward. So Ken is our outgoing president. He has been ESIP's president for the last 2.5 years, and he has been incredibly valuable to me, especially as I took on a new role as ESIP's executive director. Ken has really helped me learn the ins and outs of ESIP's culture. And many of you may not realize, but Ken lives maybe half an hour from me. That might be with traffic. So in those days of COVID, when we really weren't meeting with people, some of my first in-person meetings were with Ken along the Baltimore-Annapolis bike trail at a great coffee shop where we could catch up in person. There's also a good cheesesteak place right there. Yeah, we had some good meetings. And Ken has really exemplified steady leadership in the last 2.5 years. And he has been a trusted sounding board for me. And his lasting impact on ESIP can be seen in many ways, but especially through our shared desire to practice what we preach and bring data to the heart of the community of ESIP and how we manage ESIP. And he also leaves a lasting impact in our mission and our vision work that we shared with you this week. So it is my pleasure to present Ken with a plaque in recognition of his service. For those of you who have been on virtual meetings with Ken, he is very intentional about his backdrop, if he has his NOAA sign up or his ESIP sign up. So we're going to add to your art in your office. And I asked Ken what data is most meaningful to him. And I think as we all saw in the lab plenary earlier this week, data really can be art, right? I'm not Scott. I can't pretend to be Scott, but we have created a plaque for Ken using his favorite data, which is sea surface temperature. And I reflected on my trip down here that morning, hearing all the news about the record sea surface temperatures we're seeing in the world right now. And it made me think about his passion for this data type. And we pulled MODIS data from January of 2003 to put on your plaque, because that is, to his knowledge, his first ESIP meeting. And so I wanted the plaque to represent the time of service that he has given to ESIP in the last 20 years. So thank you very much, Ken. Ken will give some remarks, but I'm going to move on to show you our new board and our new leadership for the coming year. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to your new ESIP board and program committee. And what I see here is a really nice balance of continuity and change. We have 3 new committee chairs, and the committee chairs serve on our program committee. That is Alexis Gerritsen, who you met this week, our Raskin Scholar with the Data Stewardship Committee. Shelley Olds is taking the reins of the Education Committee, and Marshall Ma for the Semantic Technology Committee. For our board, I am thrilled to have Denise Hills stepping into the role of president. Amber Budden and Mike Daniels will continue in the roles of Governance Committee Chair and at-large. And joining new board leaders, we have Douglas Rao, notably a former community fellow, as vice president, Leslie Shee as partnership committee chair, Ruth Dewar as finance committee chair, and our 2 new at-large board members are Kathy Todd Brown, who I know is online, and Gu Peng here in the room. Sarah Ramdeen will continue on the board in the role of nominations committee chair until Denise appoints a new nominations committee chair. If that's a position that interests you, I encourage you to reach out to Denise about that. So now I would like to ask Ken to give us some parting remarks. And we're going to start a new tradition of passing the gavel of leadership from Ken to Denise. And Denise will share a few thoughts with us about looking forward.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And I don't have a lot of prepared remarks here, but I do want to take the opportunity to say thanks to a few groups. And I'd start by saying actually thanks to Noah and my team at NOAA. It is an absolute privilege to be able to serve, and without my agency's support and all of the wonderful folks from NCEI there, it just never would have been able to do it. But to be able to really and to do this, you know, we often say, oh, what's your day job, right? Actually, ESIP was my day job for the last 2.5 years. It was part of my day job. And that is an incredible privilege, and that privilege is not lost on me. So first and foremost, a hearty thanks to all of those folks. Secondly, I really want to say thanks to the board members that I was honored to serve with over the last 2.5 years, and the ESIP staff. I mean, I want to use like lots of profanities of like, what a bunch of bad, you know, this is the A team. I mean, when you think about the spectrum from low to high functioning teams, the ESIP board and the ESIP staff, they've turned it up to an 11. I mean, these folks are incredible. So thank you so much to Susan and the entire staff who really, truly make the job of ESIP president kind of a piece of cake. So if you're thinking about doing this job, I can't recommend it strongly enough. And really, finally, I just want to say maybe the biggest thanks of all to all of you. Being able to have this honor of serving this community for the last 2.5 years, you know, it's just amazing because it's all of the sort of energizing little bursts that I get in the interactions with the community. When you're bringing ideas to me or sharing your thoughts, or, you know, just having like those conversations in the hallway after a session, all of that stuff just sort of, it just builds this momentum that really makes it easy to carry it all through. And so I think with that, I just really want to say this hearty thanks to all of you. I can't wait to see where ESIP goes with the next 25 years, and I hope to be around for at least a good portion of that. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. Now we are starting a new tradition here with the ESIP gavel. And as the board members can attest to, I wielded this profusely at our board meeting on Monday, and I kept us on time. And so with that, I have the honor to pass the gavel to Denise.
Thank you, Ken. I had to write things down because I'll forget. Just like Ken said, thank you to all of you here in person, online, those who couldn't be here, whether for personal or professional reasons, you're all part of us. I helped put together our community participation guidelines. And it starts with a line, the heart of ESIP is the people. And it is. And every single one of you in here has an important role to play, whether it's your first time or your 50th time at an ESIP meeting. I appreciate all of you being here. This week for me has been about connection. Friends, old and new, colleagues, past, present, and future, conversations about everything, family, friends, those who are here, those who we wish could be here. We talked about strawberries. We had a really great discussion about strawberries, actually, and politics, and how important data is, and even things like the military-industrial complex. Last night, over beverages, that we had really great discussions. But of course, the main things we talked about: open data, open science, opening doors. ESIP is now 25 years old. We can now rent a car. And we have accomplished so very much, but we have so much more to do. For the past 25 years, ESIP has been the place To do the science, we need to do science better. In the next 25 years, I want ESIP to become the place to do the science to make the world better. And I think our new mission and vision really kind of capture that. I want for us as a community to be very intentional as we look at how ESIP should evolve over the next 25 years. How are we expanding our community? Who should be here but isn't? Who shows up but doesn't stay, and why? What does participation mean? You know, what do people think ESIP can do versus what we actually can do? And how can we make that actually align a little bit better? So obviously I've got nothing big planned for the next year. In closing, I really want to thank all of you again, because really for me, ESIP is the people. I wouldn't be here if every one of you weren't here. I want to thank Ken for his outstanding leadership for the past 2.5 years and his mentoring to make me feel like I might have a chance of doing okay at this job. All the other volunteer leaders, both elected and just taking on new collaboration areas. For the emerging leaders, for those of you who haven't been called to lead yet, very much, I want to thank Susan, Annie, Megan, and Allison, and Patty. Sorry, thank you. I didn't write down the names. I should have written down the names. And those who couldn't be here, but whose presence is deeply felt. Try not to. I miss Peter. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Peter Fox. So, pardon me. As president, I've got some impressive people to live up to, but I know that they will also mentor me and be there and have my back, just like every one of you. So please come talk to me. Tell me what you think ESIP should be and how we should change, what things should stay the same. I want us to be very intentional about that. I don't want us to keep doing things just because that's how we always did it. And maybe with all your help, we can continue to make ESIP the best place to be. Thank you.
Thank you both to Denise and Ken, and I'm very excited about where we are headed. Before I ask Denise to bang the gavel for the first time and bring us to a close, normally we would move into caucusing, and it was my goal and my charge to you this week to sign up for committees throughout the week, right? I didn't want to leave our committee staffing to the people who are still here at the end of the meeting. Here is a QR code. We're not going to caucus formally because we are so close to staffing the committees. But I know that there are some people that maybe you're online, maybe you're not online, but you're still interested in committee leadership. So we have a QR code here with a form. That form describes the work of each committee, and you can sign up. Just because you weren't the first person to put your name on the list doesn't mean we shouldn't consider you for that committee. So I invite all of you to check out this form, learn about our committees and the work that they do. And I'm going to ask Ben Galuski if he would come up. He promised to give a very short, inspiring pitch on what serving on an ESIP committee has meant to him and has done for his engagement with ESIP.
Thank you, Susan. Yeah, I just wanted to offer some enthusiastic words about what it's meant for me to be on a committee. So I've been on the governance committee, I think for 3 years now, and it's really changed my relationship to ESIP. Instead of coming here and thinking, ESIP, you, I really now feel much more like ESIP, us. And it's just such a great feeling to be involved with so much that's happening behind the scenes at ESIP. And you show up and you really feel like you're much more of a part of this. So I invite everybody to work on committees. It's just such a great experience and it'll deepen your relationship to this great organization. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Ben. I really appreciate you sharing that. He slacked me yesterday. If you're not on ESIP Slack, get on ESIP Slack, right? He slacked me last night and said, if you want me to come talk about committees, I will do that. So please grab that form. We'll also put it in ESIP General Slack so that the broader community can get it. And while I told you earlier there was one last Slido, that was for your feedback about ESIP as an organization. I am begging you, please complete our meeting evaluation. The participation rates on our evaluations for the last few meetings have plummeted to an embarrassing level. You are all data people. Help ESIP be a data-driven organization and tell us about your experience this week. We want to hear the good, the bad, the ugly. I promise you we can take it. It is only with your feedback that we can be better. We're going to leave this QR code up through lunch so you can, there's no excuse. We want to hear from all of you. You might even get a few emails asking you to complete it as well. So before we adjourn, I want to remind you all that there are 3 awesome sessions. We are not done. Please give your energy and your time to those 3 sessions that will start. We have a bit of a break, and I believe those sessions start at 11:30, followed by lunch back here in this room. So with that, thank you. And I will ask Denise to adjourn our annual meeting.
I get to use the gavel. I'm so excited. Thank you for being here. And I adjourn the General Assembly meeting for 2023.